but then you don't spend it, you don't disburse it, and this is an area where it's needed, national security. So, 7 million, they spent 0.8 million. Out of the total of 7 million, the minister only released less than $1 million, 0.8. This year, we see another allocation for 6 million for mining equipment. And this may turn out to be another mama guy for the TTPS and the country. You will hear them boast about purchasing vehicles for the police. Again, the estimates reveal the truth. $25 million were allocated in this last fiscal year. Do you know how much was released, madam? $4.1 million. So why are you always consistently overestimating and underestimating? And then not giving the allocations. Why? The minister this year has mentioned the integrated logistics support facility. That is something we heard last year, of course. And you know what is allocated for it? $1.4 million in the last budget. And guess what? Not a single cent of that was spent. Not a single cent. And many of the projects are like that. Madam, I'll tell you, in all these sectors, MPs on this side have shadow portfolios, and they will go into greater depth for each of the ministries and sectors. So they have no achievements. And therefore, what they're doing now, they're claiming to build things that they didn't build. They're claiming that they're going to build things that are already built. And I don't know how the opening of the Penal Fire Station, I was there. And the then Minister Stuart Young, we opened it together. He's no longer National Security, but he then opened it in capacity as Minister of National Security, Penal Fire Station. And I don't know, I don't know how the opening of that station slipped the memory of the member for Port-au-Prince North St. Anne's, Minister Young. I know it slipped his memory. And that was something I'll never forget. It was horrifying. And I don't know how they forgot that and put it back, put it in the budget as to be built. A similar thing is happening with the Roxborough Fire Station. Put back in this budget statement, they're going to build it. The thing built already. Built already. Energy sector, madam. Energy sector. More typos maybe, yeah. I guess those are all typos. With the energy sector, what a sad place we are with our energy sector. Once the energy sector was really our masterpiece, centerpiece, everything else you could think of in that regard. We had one of the oldest oil industries. I remember reading in a book somebody writing up about Petrotrin down there and the flame, some great legacy. I remember that we supplied fuel, madam, during the World War II. It was our energy, ours. We were so great that we were shipping and helping in the war efforts in those days. And now here we are, and I think on last Monday, the minister read the eulogy of the energy sector. 6 years of untruths, thank you. 6 years of untruths, collapse, and crisis. When I listened to him, I noticed that unlike previous ministers of finance, he was not reporting on the success of our nation's strongest sector. Instead, what he did, as I said, he read the eulogy for the energy sector. First of all, we have to look at the unrealistic, misleading gas figure. Minister boasted gas production would increase to 3.37 billion standard cubic feet in the next year. Minister, you think that will really happen? The fact is that under your watch, gas production collapsed to its lowest in decades. Lowest in decades. To 2.7 billion standard cubic feet. And then we have the pie in the sky oil production figure. The government has carried oil production to its lowest since 1950s. Since the 1950s. When we left office, oil production was around 80,000 barrels per day. In our last year, your last year, the Rowley-led government, you averaged 57,800 barrels per day. How can we expect for you to achieve 86,000 barrels next year when you have struggled to the last 6 years to even achieve over 70,000 barrels? How are you going to do it? More pie in the sky. For 5 years, the Prime Minister has beaten his chest that he's the nation's best salesman. How can you be the best salesman when our nation has gone from positive FDI flows, foreign direct investment flows, to negative, as I said before, minus 11 point something? How can you be the best salesman? How can you be the best salesman when only last month Exxon announced that it is moving almost all supply work from Trinidad to Ghana? How can that be? How can you be the best salesman when you single-handedly destroyed Point Lisas with your Houston gas negotiations, causing the most plant closures ever in our nation's history, decimating the downstream sector? My person shadowing energy will talk a little more, but I must say that the incentives we introduced during our term were innovative enough that they would have been able to attract and allow companies to exist in the economy of today, even though we'll be facing the competition from Ghana, facing competition from green energy, and facing pandemic shutdown. So we will give you more details of what we would have done. But clearly none of that is happening now, where the company, Exxon has declared that it will leave. There are also pie-in-the-sky lies, maybe I can't say lies, but untruths, about the failures on gas production. So I spoke about the oil production, gas production. In the 2019 budget, Minister, you told our nation that gas production would increase to 4.05 billion standard cubic feet per day in 2020 and 4.14 billion per day in 2021. Due to incompetence, that instead of increasing production, it fell, as I said before, to the lowest level in decades. When we left office, gas production would be 3.8 and 4 billion standard cubic feet. Not once have you managed to surpass the level of gas production that the government I led did. You have spent years talking about the partnership's treatment of NGC, but today I remind this government that NGC never made a loss under my government. We see NGC has recorded a loss. We see NGC has recorded a loss of $2.1 billion. That wasn't COVID. That was not the global economy. It was a poorly negotiated gas prices by this government. Still on the energy sector, we have seen the abuse of the NGC. This is, we've termed it Malcolm Jones 2.0. They criticize the partnership government for using NGC dividends to develop the lives of people of this nation. But once did we ever abuse NGC, as we have been seeing in the last few months. In September, our nation was reminded of the usual everyday vulgar mismanagement by this government when it revealed that the board of NGC had allegedly sought indemnity for the decision to spend $440 million on the Atlantic Train 1 turnaround. What is really going on at NGC? How can a government and cabinet, which has boasted about value for money, allow this wastage of taxpayers' money at a time when we are struggling for revenue? Prime Minister, why are you protecting Mark Loquan? Why? And then we come to the biggest national betrayal, Petrotrin. This government must never be forgiven for putting out the light at Petrotrin. This government must never be forgiven for the dismay and despair they caused through their betrayal of shutting down Petrotrin. Remember, the government is not closing down Petrotrin. And if you were closing your fridge door, I repeat, the government is not closing down Petrotrin. That from the Honorable Prime Minister. And shortly thereafter, all, closed down all. They never presented a single report, a single expert reason or proper rationale. Yet with the stroke of a pen, they put tens of thousands on the breadline. They destroy the fence line communities. They remove our fuel and forex security and weaken our energy sector. For the last year, we have heard not a single plan about the reopening of this refinery, but before election, Mama Guy, fooling people, going to sell it to OWTU. Election come and gone, what's happening now? Not a word. Maybe the new Minister of Energy will tell us what's the plan for Petrotrin, the refinery down, that was the Petrotrin refinery. They have abandoned the refinery to become scrap metal. Now with this budget, we're hearing rumors again, we're getting a buyer, we're going to sell it. That is old talk. The Petrotrin buying scrap iron. But any scrap iron dealers are asking to be able to buy the scrap iron. The Petrotrin closure is just a confirmation that nothing this government says can be trusted. I turn now to agriculture. Very, very important sector with respect to having food security for our country. This sector continues to receive total neglect by this Rowley-led government. The impudence of the Minister of Finance is truly remarkable, as he once again presented pie-in-the-sky promises to farmers. I will just deal with a few of the matters on this portfolio, and our shadow person will pick it up. One of the matters that continues to be of most pressing challenge the farmers are facing has to do with land tenure. Yet nothing has been done to alleviate these problems. This government seems incapable of understanding the problems regarding ownership of land. $20 million has been allocated in the budget to develop lands of Caroni and Orange Grove by the EMBD. No money has been allocated under this ministry for development of agricultural lands in other parts of the country. So it's at Orange Grove, at Caroni. The minister's access road repair program to cover 80 kilometers of road excluded the entire south and central part of the country. These are major agricultural areas. Is this again geographic discrimination? Geographic apartheid? The agricultural incentives program has been decreased by $12.1 million. Because of this neglect, farmers and citizens are the ones left to suffer. So imagine you invest as a farmer heavily with little or no assistance from government. You prepare your land, you plant your land, you maintain your crops, and then what happens? They all washed away in a flood due to the government's incompetence. And then to be sold dreams of receiving compensation never materializes when all these things are washed away. We look at the flooding and draining issues. It is alarming that the Minister of Finance did not mention flooding at least once in his presentation, because flooding is a threat year after year. In recent times, this flooding has expanded into areas that traditionally never flooded. And so we were alligators in the Murky Lagoon. That's where the flooding was, one minister said. Well, now the flooding is across the island, throughout the land. In fiscal 2021, only $2.8 million was spent to upgrade existing drainage pumps and gate inventory. No wonder we have such massive flooding in agricultural areas throughout the country. In fiscal 21, Ministry of Works and Transport, listen to this, allocated $51 million under the DP program for flooding and irrigation. Out of that, you know how much was spent? $29.5 million was spent. Where the other half going? What did you do with it? And all the flooding continuing. While the government's new mantra is to blame climate change for flooding, it is really their neglect that results in this catastrophe. For agriculture, still on agriculture, pre-DL larceny. My office has received complaints from farmers all over the country of the lack of resources available for the pre-DL larceny squad to carry out their duties effectively. The major underlying issue is that of enforcement, as the squad lacks sufficient staff, trained personnel, equipment, and resources. In 2021, one would think that technology such as drones would be utilized to provide surveillance. However, we are told that some of the units do not even have functional vehicles, or something as simple as a battery for the patrol vessel to carry out their function. And all the ministers spend so much time on Prime Minister's created a new ministry talking about digitization. The people don't even have a battery to put in the car, in the vehicle, to do their job. I remember the hypocrisy of this government, when community activists in Ahokata initiated a program called Project Hope in an effort to boost agriculture in the community, to get more young persons involved. It was met with immediate disdain from none other than the Prime Minister himself. You know what he called it? He called the program pak choy politics. Well, people eat that, you know, Prime Minister. People do eat it. Senator Jalan and a team in Lahoketa developed grow box systems which successfully attracted dozens of youth from the community, thereby giving them an opportunity to make an honest livelihood and provide food for their families. That was criticized by the Prime Minister. You know, the Prime Minister really lacks, cannot seem to understand about agriculture, because once again, we see in this budget presentation the lack of foresight of how to boost the agricultural sector. And you recall when the Prime Minister told this country, we can't do agriculture, we don't have enough land. Didn't know the technology now. You could grow food in water. You could do vertical, go up in the air. I have some of those in my yard. Vertical farming with Karaili vines, yes, and same, the vines, cucumbers and so on. Vertical, go up in the air. If you don't have space on the ground, you go vertical. So no understanding of agriculture, the importance of food security for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I will speak now a bit on the health sector, madam. This government boasted about being #1 in the world, the best in the Commonwealth for health, and yet they choose to go abroad to get treatment. It's hard to believe 6 years ago this nation was on the brink of establishing a vibrant health tourism sector with the Couva Children's Hospital. Imagine it took a global pandemic for this government to open the doors to that fully equipped Couva Children's Hospital. I know we invested very heavily in health. We invested heavily in that hospital, specifically for children, with intentions of it becoming a flagship facility, encouraging and boosting medical tourism. This would have been a pilot of a new and upcoming industry that had the potential to create thousands of new jobs, as well as boosting and diversifying our economy. Knowing that we had a fully equipped hospital and only needed to be staffed, it was purposely kept closed, and I can only say that is political spite and malice. That shows you the kind of people we are dealing with here today. They have no issue with letting people die if it suits their political purposes. When we consider the pressures that the entire health sector is under on a normal day pre-COVID, it is alarming to note how little investment was made into bolstering the sector since then. Up to today, citizens have to wait months for a CT scan or an MRI. They have sat back and refused to open hospitals, as I said, out of bad mind. Yet they're coming now to parade up and down, opening facilities that we started that took you years to build and finish. Some of these are Point Fortin Hospital. Don't forget the Scarborough Hospital, man. Don't forget that. Completed under my government. Scarborough Hospital. We take ownership of it. The Rima Hospital. The Couva Children's Hospital. The numerous health centers across the country that we refurbished and upgraded. Because of their bad mind, it seems, towards the population, they failed to utilize all the infrastructure we left behind, thereby weakening our already burdened health system. They allowed it to sit and rot instead of utilizing them for the good health of people. So many are of the opinion that our health sector was purposely sabotaged by this government. All the P&M have built were some tents that they got donated from the US military.